A very good morning to all of you. Today we are going to learn about the use of isotopes geochemistry in forensic geology. Or today we are going to discuss about different radioactive isotopes. These are a kind of technique that can be used to study the age of different geological features, different geological structures. So we call it as a the use of geochemistry in forensic geology. Forensic geology tells us about the structure and composition of different materials and also the age of the materials. So today we will discuss about the radioisotopes. Okay, so before starting the topic, we should know first what is the nucleus of an object. So in the previous class, we have already discussed that the nucleus of an atom contains proton and neutron. Okay, and the electron revolves around the nucleus. So there are three particles in the atom: electron, proton, and neutrons. Proton and neutrons are in the nucleus, and the electron revolves around the nucleus. And this nucleus contains most of the mass of the atom, and it is determined mostly by the protons and neutrons. Where neutron is neutral, that there is no charge on the neutron. Proton is positively charged, and the electron is negatively charged. These are some basic things you must know about the electron, proton, and neutron. So the binding energy between the nucleus and the electron makes the electron to revolve around the nucleus. Okay, because electron is negatively charged, and in the nucleus proton is positively charged, whereas neutron is having no charge, it's neutral. Electrons are distributed around the nucleus in shell and orbits. Electrons are not in the same orbit, but there are multiple orbits, multiple cells. There may be more than one electrons, more than 2 3 5, any number of electrons may be there. So all the electrons are distributed in different orbits or different cells, and they revolve around the nucleus because of some gravitational force. As we know that nucleus is having some positively charged protons, and electron is negatively charged proton. So if there is a positively charged energy and negatively charged energy, so there may be some gravitational force that bind the neutron in that with that nucleus. Okay, so first, the electron is a particle. It's a subatomic particle first discovered by J.J. Thomson in 1897, and this was used the cathode ray tube to discover the electron. They have used the cathode ray tube to discover the electron, and the mass of the electron is 9.1 into 10 to the power of minus 28 gram. It's a negatively charged particle. Okay, so before 1897, there was no information about the nucleus. There was no information about the proton, electron, and neutrons. So with the discovery of electron, the recent, you can say, the branch of physics which is known as particle physics. Okay, the particle physics have been developed with the discovery of electrons, protons, and neutrons. So I'm not going in detail about the electrons. It's just a basic information about the electrons. Okay, so proton was another subatomic particle. It was observed by Goldstein in 1896, and the J.J. Thomson named later discovered in properties. It has a positively charged. Protons are positively charged particles. It is having the negative, or you can say it is having the opposite charge of an electron. That's why there is a binding energy, there is a gravitational force between the proton and electron. Proton is having positive charge, electron is having negative charge. That's why they bind with each other. Okay, and this particle proton was discovered by Goldstein in 1896. Okay, so the Thomson is given credit for showing that atoms contain both negatively and positively charged particles, and the mass of the proton is around 1 AMU. 1 AMU means 1.67 into 10 to the power of minus 24 gram. Okay, so this was the initial discoveries regarding the subatomic level of particles. Okay, so before studying the radioactive elements, radioactive isotopes, you should know about the electron, proton, and neutron. What is atomic number? What is the charge of electron, and how the electrons are distributed in different orbitals or different cells around the nucleus. Okay, now neutron, third major subatomic particle is neutron. Neutron was discovered by James Chadwick in 1932. It is having no charge. It's a neutral particle. Okay, and its mass is around 1 AMU. 1 AMU means 1.675 into 10 to the power of minus 20 gram. Okay, so there are three subatomic level of particles: electron, proton, and neutron. Electron is negatively charged, proton is positively charged, and neutron is having no charge. It's a neutral particle. Okay, so now the term which is important, this isotope. Okay, isotope is very important term. So while the atoms of the same element have the same atomic number, that is number of protons, the atomic number of an element means the number of protons in that atom. If the atom is having number of proton 50, so its atomic number will be 50. Okay, so depending on the number of protons in the nucleus of an element, we can know the atomic number of that atom. Okay, but they may have different numbers of neutrons. Protons may be the same in multiple, in different elements, but number of neutrons will be the different. So depending on the differences in the number of neutrons in the nucleus of element, they can create a different type of element of the same element, that is known as isotope. Okay, isotope means it is the same element, but it is having different number of neutrons. So on the basis of the number of neutrons, we can have the isotope of the same element. Okay, if the element is X, okay, then the isotope of element X may have different number of neutrons. Although both the elements have the same number of protons, the atomic numbers will be the same, but in some cases both the elements may have different number of neutrons. So depending on the different number of neutrons, it may have some different elements, that is known as isotopes. Okay, so isotopes are the atoms of the same element having different masses. So this is the basic difference between the element and isotope. Element may have the number of protons and number of neutrons that may be the same, but if another element having the same number of protons, but they are having different number of neutrons, so it will have different mass. So depending on it, we can call it as a isotope. Okay, so isotope is very important. It tells us the configuration, it tells us the structure of the element. Depending on the number of neutrons, depending on the different masses of the same element, we come to know that whether it is isotope or the original element. Okay, moving to the next slide. Okay, so the for writing the isotope of an element, we have to follow this symbology. Okay, X is the element. Suppose X is any element, and the mass number A is the number of protons plus number of neutrons. The total mass of the nucleus means the total number of protons and total number of neutrons. When we add the total number of protons and total number of neutrons in the nucleus, and we add the mass of all the number of protons and neutrons, it will be the mass number of that element, that will be A. Okay, but atomic number is the total number of protons, that is represented here as a Z. So this is the nomenclature, this is the nomenclature system which is used to write the mass number and atomic number. Suppose a element is X. Okay, so if its mass is 100, so it will be written 100x and number of proton is 50. So 100x 50. 100 means it is representing the mass number, that is the total number of protons plus total number of neutrons in the nucleus, and Z, that is the only the total number of protons, that is the atomic number. So by getting the total number of protons, we can know the atomic number of that element. But the difference may be there because of the number of neutrons. So you see here, if the number of neutrons will be changed, so its mass number will be, its atomic mass will be changed. So in this case will be the isotope. Okay, if the number of neutrons will be changed, but still it is having the same number of protons, so their mass will be changed, so it will create some different isotope. Okay, here you see this is a element which is Kr, krypton. Krypton is a element. Okay, so here 94 is representing the total number of protons plus total number of neutrons, that is the mass of the element. Here 36 is only the total number of neutrons, total number of protons. Okay, 36 is the total number of protons, so it will be considered as the atomic number of the krypton. The atomic number will be 36, which is the total number of protons. Okay, and this 94 is representing the addition of the number of protons plus number of neutrons. So if you want to know the number of neutrons, so you have to subtract 36 from 94, so you will have 58. Means this element is having 58 number of neutrons and 36 number of protons. This 36 number represent the atomic number, and that 58 is the number of neutrons in that element. And when we add the number of protons and number of neutrons, it will be the total mass of the element. So this is the symbology, this is the way we can represent the total mass and the number of protons in an element. Okay, this is the standard symbology for representing any element or its isotope. Okay, so natural isotopes, like each and every element has some natural isotopes. They may occur in the nature automatically. Like for example, hydrogen has 3 naturally occurring isotopes. Okay, isotopes may be created artificially, or it may be present in the nature because of any natural process. Okay, so hydrogen is having 3 natural isotopes. Protium is the element, protium is a radioactive element. It is the most abundant isotope of the hydrogen. Okay, protium is the most abundant isotope of the hydrogen, that is having 1 proton and 0 neutron and 1 electron. Okay, so out of all 3 isotopes of the hydrogen, protium is the most widely present, most widely abundant isotope of the hydrogen, which is having only 1 proton and 1 electron. Okay, it is having 1 proton, it means its atomic number will be 1. The how many number of protons in that element is the atomic number of that element. So this is having atomic number 1. Okay, then second isotope of the hydrogen is deuterium. Deuterium is having 1 proton, 1 neutron and 1 electron. Okay, it is having 1 proton, it means its atomic number is 1, and it is having only 1 neutron, so its total mass will be 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, and it is having only 1 electron. Third isotope of the hydrogen is tritium. Tritium is having 1 proton, 2 neutron and 1 electron. It means its total mass is 1 proton plus 2 neutron is equal to 3. Its mass will be 3. That is, the total mass is the addition of the number of protons and number of neutrons, and it is having only 1 electron. So this is the way we can identify, we get to know the atomic numbers and total atomic mass of that element. So this is the example of hydrogen. Hydrogen having 3 naturally occurring isotopes: protium, deuterium and tritium. Okay, and this is having the number of protons, and they all are having different number of protons, different number of neutrons and electrons. Okay, this is the symbol, this is the figure, this is the diagrammatic representation of different isotopes of the hydrogen. So protium is only having 1 proton and 1 electron. Deuterium is having 1 proton, 1 neutron and 1 electron. So you can see in the nucleus it is having 1 proton and 1 neutron, and electron is revolving around the nucleus. Electron always revolves around the nucleus, while the nucleus of that particle, nucleus of that element will be stable. It is having number of protons and number of neutrons. Tritium is having 1 proton and 2 neutron. So here you can see it is having total number of 3. So its atomic mass will be 3, and its atomic number will be 1. Atomic number means total number of protons, that is having only 1 proton, and electron is revolving around the nucleus. So this is the way you can represent any number of isotopes of any material, any element in the nature. Whatever the different elements having different number of isotopes depending on the natural process as well as the you can say the artificial process. Now moving to the next slide. Yeah, this is the nuclei. Nuclei is the plural form of the nucleus. Okay. Singular form is nucleus, and when we talk about more than 1 nucleus, we call it as a nuclei. Nuclei is the plural form of the nucleus. So this is the nuclei of the three different isotopes of the hydrogen, having protium, deuterium, and tritium. So as we know that proton is positively charged and neutron is having no charge. So here you see there is only one positive charge particle, that is proton, one positively charged particle in the deuterium, that is proton, and one positively charged particle in the nucleus of tritium, that is the proton. Okay, proton is always having positively charged particles. So this is the nuclei of three different isotopes of the hydrogen. So isotopes may also be categorized into two categories, that is unstable isotope and stable isotope. So unstable isotopes are continuously and spontaneously break down and decay in other low atomic weights. And stable isotopes, they do not naturally decay but can exist in the natural material in differentiating property. Some isotopes may be changed into different element. Some isotopes doesn't change into different element. They are stable. So unstable and stable, there are two types of isotopes, and both type of isotopes are very important. On the basis of their characteristics, we come to know the characteristics and properties of different elements that is naturally occurring in the Earth surface, or you can say any kind of geological object, any kind of rock, any kind of material, mineral, which is found on the Earth surface or below the Earth surface. On the basis of their isotopes, we come to know that how it is affecting and what is the age of that particle or that element. So here radioactivity, as already discussed, that it's a process by which the nuclei, or you can say the nucleus, spontaneously undergo transformation to other isotopes. Okay, and that corresponding the release of the radiation. As yesterday we have discussed that there is a tendency of the nucleus to release the energy. The electron which is revolving around the nucleus, it is having the tendency to release the energy and go back to the lower energy state. So during this process, it releases a high amount of energy that will be released in the form of you can say the atomic energy or nuclear energy. Okay, that will be used for different applications. Okay, so this is the way that how does radioactive decay works. So it's a spontaneous fission of the nucleus continuously break down into different components, and when this fission will occur in a specific nucleus, that cannot be predicted. However, we can predict the probability of decay in a given time interval. Okay, after a fixed time interval, the half of the radioactive isotopes or parent are decayed to the stable non-active daughter. So here you see there are decaying of the nucleus. So in the first figure, there are 20 parent particles. Then there are having two daughters, that is their isotopes. Okay, and it's continuously decay into different particles, different atoms. Then finally, it will be decayed into different particles that is having only 5 parent and 17 daughters. Initially, it is having 20 parent element or 20 parent particle, but right now at the final stage it is having only 5 parent particle. So this is the process of the decay of any radioactive element or any radioactive material. Okay, also we have discussed that during the radioactive process there is a release of energy. That energy may have different kinds of particles: alpha particle, beta particle, gamma particles, and gamma rays. Okay, so alpha, beta, and gamma particles are the particles that may be released during the radioactive process. And it is very important to know that depending on the process of the radioactivity, depending on the process of radioactivity in a specific element, we may have different number of alpha, beta, and gamma particles. Okay, some particles or some elements release high number of alpha, beta particles. Some elements doesn't release high number of alpha, beta, gamma particles. Some elements release high amount of gamma rays. That is a part of electromagnetic radiation that is very harmful for the human health and other living organism on the earth. Okay, so depending on the element size, depending on the stability of the nucleus, whether it is unstable or stable. If it is unstable, so there is a high tendency of releasing the gamma radiation. If it is stable nucleus, If the nucleus is very stable, so there is a less tendency of releasing the gamma radiation or any kind of particle. So stability of the nucleus is very important. It depends the nucleus, the formation of the you can say the structure of the nucleus, and the number of electrons which is revolving around the nucleus. Okay, so here this is the way we can know the age of a particle, or we can say that age of an element, depending on its decay. Decay means the conversion of a nucleus or the conversion of a isotope into another isotope. Conversion of isotope into another isotope takes some time. Okay, depending on that time, we come to know the age of that element. Some particles or some radioactive elements converted will be converted into different element, different isotope in 2 million years. So the age of that particle will be considered as 2 million, depending on their time interval, that time it will take to convert into different isotope. We will have different age, or we will have different time interval of the particle. Here you see, this is the uranium. Uranium is a radioactive element. Its mass is 238. Okay, and its isotope is Pb, that is having 206 mass. Okay, so it was the condition before 4.5 billion years ago, but after the continuous decay, right now it is having only the 50% of the materials, 50% of the particles left in that uranium. So on the basis of this, we come to know that this element was generated, or this element was produced before 4.5 million years ago. That is one half life, or 6.3 half life. Means half life means how much time a particle or how much time an element take to convert into different isotope or different element. So depending on this, by calculating the time taken by the particle to be converted into different particle, we come to know the age of that element. So this is this concept, the isotope, the age of the isotope is very important. This concept is very important to get the information about the old rocks or any kind of fossils, or it also tell you about the geological time scale of any element or any fossil or any kind of structure. It may be rock, it may be fossils, it may be any kind of underground structure or any kind of rock. Okay, so this is the way we use the conversion of the element into another isotope. Isotope is a converted form of the element. If a element converted into another element, so that is isotope. So it takes some time. So we calculate the time, how much time it will take to be changed into another particle or another isotope. That tell us the age of that material or that element. Okay, so this is the graph showing the proportion of atoms left and the time in the half lives. Okay, so you can see with the decreasing time in half lives, it may have less number proportion of the atoms left in the material. The time it will take to convert it into isotope, it means the proportion of the atoms will be less during the time interval, 4 million year, 5 million year, 6 million year. The number of particles, number of atoms in the nucleus will be changed, will be less. There will be the less number of particles in the nucleus with the time that will having one. This is the time in the million year scale: 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. So you can see with the continuous decay of the particle, with the continuous decay of that element, it is also having, it is also approaching to the half life. Okay, so initially it was having some mineral, that is newly found mineral, and by the time it is converting into different isotopes, and right now we are having other type of isotopes. In initial stage, it is having all the original particles, means it is having the original element, that is newly formed mineral at the formation, at its initial formation. But by decaying process, because of the decay of the nucleus nucleus continuously changing into different element, that is isotope. Right now in the final stage, it will be having different number of protons or different number of neutrons in the nucleus, so it will be converted into the different element or different material. So it takes some time, so we calculate that time to get the information about the age of that element or age of that mineral. Okay, so this is the figure showing how that unstable nucleus releases the energy, that in the form of alpha emission, beta emission, or gamma emission, and now it will be converted into different kind of element. Okay, the proton is positively charged, neutron is negatively charged, but the electron revolving around the nucleus is having tendency to go into the lower energy state, so it releases some amount of energy. That energy will be released in the form of alpha particle, beta particle, and gamma particle or gamma rays. So when it releases some energy, so it will be releasing some uh, it's some materials or some particles in its nucleus. Energy release means it is releasing some of the particles, some of the electron, some of the protons and neutrons in the nucleus. So its atomic number or its atomic mass will be changed. So after the releasing of energy, it will be converted into different in a element that will be considered as the isotope, and it will be different from the original element. It will have different number of neutrons in respect to the original element. That is the case of unstable nucleus or unstable element. Okay, so this is the figure showing the half-life of different radioactive elements: uranium, thorium, and plutonium. So uranium is having 4.5 million years. It will take 4.5 million years to decay its half of the particles. Means after 4.5 billion years, the uranium release its 50% of the nucleus particles, and it will be converted into different isotope or different element. Okay, so you can see different radioactive elements have different half-life, and depending on their half-life, we come to know that the age of the originally generated element in the nature. Okay, moving to the next slide. Now it is the, so okay, this is the figure showing how the rubidium, that is a radioactive element. Rubidium is having total 37 protons and 15 neutrons, and when it releases its energy, it means it is releasing some of the protons and neutrons in the nucleus. So right now, you can see here it is converted into another element, that is the isotope of the rubidium. It is having strontium. Strontium is having another isotope, then you can call it as a daughter element. Parent element was the rubidium, and right now it releases some amount of energy, and it changes its nucleus. The number of neutrons in the nucleus is changed. It releases a neutron, so its number of neutron is now changed into 49, while the number of proton is increased up to 38. Okay, so this change will be in the form of new element, that is isotope, or you can call it as a daughter element. So initially it was having the name rubidium, but by the conversion or the its isotope is known with new name, that is strontium. Both are having same number of atomic mass, same number of you can say the same number of atomic mass, that is the total of the protons and neutrons, but in the nucleus the number is changed. Proton is increased and neutron is decreased, so it is having new type of element, that is isotope, or you can call it as a daughter element. So, geological time scale is a absolute or radiometric time scale that finds the age of an object or any element in years before present, based on the absolute scale derived from the radioactive isotopes. Depending on the time taken by the element to be changed into its isotope, we come to know the age of each specific object or age of a specific element. or any kind of naturally occurred element in the on the Earth's surface. Okay, so this is the time geological time scale for different radioactive isotopes that is used for geological dating. Okay, parent material is uranium, and the daughter element, that is isotope of the uranium, is lead, that is having 206 atomic mass. So it will take 4.5 million years, that is half life. Half life means it converted into different material after 4.5 million years. Uranium 235, it will be converted into different isotope, different element, that will take 700 713 million. Thorium is having different half-life. Krypton, rubidium, cesium, all are the radioactive elements, and the daughter elements are kind of isotope elements of the parent element that are having different type of atomic number, different type of it will have different name. Half life is equal to time it will take for half of the parent mass to decay. If the total mass is the 50% of the total mass of the element is decay or lost during the time, it is known as half life. Okay, so after 4.5 million year, uranium release its 50% of the mass, uranium losses its 50% of the mass, and it will be converted into new isotope, new element, that is daughter element. So this tells us the age of specific material or specific element that is used for geological dating or geological time scale. Okay. Geological time scale, carbon dating, carbon 14 dating is another method to get the information about the geological time scale. It's a cosmic ray neutron. When a neutron collides with an atom of the atmospheric nitrogen, which decays into 14C and the hydrogen. So also using carbon dating means this equation tells us the age of an material, age of an element, that is known as carbon dating. 14C is rapidly oxidized to 14CO2, which is continuously taken up into living organism. So by getting the existence of carbon 14, we come to know that the age of that element in the geological time scale. Okay, carbon 14 dating, when the organism dies, it stops taking it in 14C, which disappears at a decays into 14N. Okay, so for studying the fossils, for studying the age of the fossils, we use carbon dating. Carbon dating method helps you to identify the age of the organism or age of the any dead organism, and when it will be in the living condition, it will form the carbon 14, but when it dies it stops taking the carbon 14. So on that basis, on this concept, we come to know that what was the age of that organism. Okay, so this is the figure showing how the neutron, which is having atomic number 14, atomic mass, which is having atomic number 7, atomic mass 14, will be converted into carbon 14 by releasing a proton. Okay, after a fixed time, nucleus of the nitrogen will be converted into the carbon. So that time is important to get the age of particular organism or particular living or dead organism. Okay, geological time. Okay, carbon 14 dating is a method that is accomplished by determining the ratio of carbon to non-radioactive 12C, 14C and 12C. The ratio of 14C means 14 is the atomic mass of the carbon, and 12 is atomic mass of the carbon. There are two kind of materials, two kind of elements, 14C and 12C. So the ratio of 14C and 12C tells us the information about the living organism or the age of the living organism, but it changes after the organism dies. There will be the fixed ratio still the organism is in live condition, but when it dies the ratio will be changed, and on that basis we come to know that how much time, how which before time that living organism died. Okay, so this is the figure showing how this radiocarbon process, how this mechanism works. Here you see the cosmic rays interacts with the nitrogen present in the atmosphere, and it releases carbon dioxide having atomic mass 14, and then it will be converted into the energy because of the photosynthesis process. Okay, and then a living organism cow is having the decay process, and now it will be converted into carbon nitrogen 14. The carbon 14 absorbed by the living organism, now it is converted into nitrogen 14. So we come to know that how much before how much time this living organism is died. So this is another example showing the process, showing the mechanism of this carbon dating process. So cosmic radiation or electromagnetic radiation interacts with the nitrogen gas present in the atmosphere, and during this interaction, the nitrogen will be converted into carbon, and that the proton which is lost during that process will be released. And okay, and all three isotopes of the carbon, that is C12, C13 and C14, are absorbed by the living organism, and that living organism after death and burial wood and bone losses C14 as it changed to the N14 by the beta decay. So carbon 14 will started into decaying, and it will again converted into nitrogen 14. So it tells us the information about whether the organism is in living condition or it is died. Okay, so this is the entire mechanism. This is the radiocarbon decay at a known rate. The paleontologists are able to determine the age of fossil by measuring the amount of C14 that is contained by that material. Moving to the next slide, this is another graph showing the ratio between the historical age and the activity ratio, that is the decay of the material or decay of the element. Okay, so this is another figure showing the year in ADBC scale on the x-axis and the age of that carbon 14 material, carbon 14 element. So it's a linear trend. With it means with increasing age of the carbon 14, it will take more years to decay. So it's a linear trend between the age of carbon 14 and the year taken by that carbon 14 to decay or to convert it into another nitrogen 14. That is the sign of the death or living of that organism. Okay. Now moving to the next slide. So this is the geological time scale. I hope all of you know about this geological time scale. It was already discussed in your previous semesters in different subjects: Quaternary, Neogen, Paleogen. Okay, then Jurassic, Triassic, Permian. These are different geological time scale, and it's a time period is written here. So all of you must aware about this. I hope all of you must aware about this geological time scale. So William Hutton is a founder of modern geology, and after many years of studying the history of the Earth, he said that he saw no vestige of a beginning and no prospect of an end. So William Hutton was considered as a founder of modern geology. Okay, so forensic carbon 14 cases. Okay, by analyzing the decay of the carbon 14, by analyzing the time taken by the carbon 14 to be decayed to be converted into nitrogen 14, we come to know the age of different materials, different objects like Dead Sea Scrolls, Stonehenge, and there's this tunnel. So we are using this carbon 14 decay process as a forensic tool, as a forensic science to get the age, to get the information about the age of different objects on the Earth surface. Okay, so carbon 14 dating is very important process for any kind of geological phenomena, for getting the information about any geological phenomena. Okay, then King Arthur's table in Winchester Castle, England, by using carbon 14 method, it was concluded that it was built in 30th century AD. Okay, cave painting at the Lescox, France, and the carbon-14 dating method is used to know the age of that cave painting that was around 14,000 BC. Rind papyrus on the Egyptian math. They also used carbon-14 dating. Carbon-14 dating was also used to get the age of that Egyptian math. It was around 1850 BC. So the carbon-14 dating process is used as a forensic tool to get the age or to get the information about the information how about the object and how old that object is. Okay, it is very important in any kind of geological process. Okay, these are some another cases where carbon-14 dating method was used to identify the to get the age of different showed after in that was around 1216 to 1390 AD. However, the recent evaluation shows that the sample measured was from a medieval patch and or that was seriously contaminated with mold and waxes. Okay, these are some of the case studies. These are some of the applications of how we can use radioactive decaying process, how we can use different kinds of different formation of different kinds of isotopes for getting the information about the geological time scale or age of different objects. Okay, so nuclear testing during 1955 to 63 put large amount of carbon-14 into the atmosphere, which was incorporated into the enamel of human teeth. Okay, because such testing stopped, the carbon-14 input ended, and carbon-14 in the teeth decayed at a fixed rate, allowing dating of the teeth. We can also get the information about the decaying of the teeth because during the nuclear testing, a high amount of carbon-14 is released in the atmosphere that was absorbed by the human body, that was absorbed by different living organism on the Earth surface. So it is also important to know that carbon-14 is used for different and various applications. You can see here the graph showing the release of carbon-14 with the year. So in between the 1960 to 1970, the high amount of carbon-14 is released in the atmosphere. Okay, that will be used to get the information about the date of different geological objects or different Earth surface features or Earth surface objects. Thank you very much for today's class. Now we will meet again for the next class, the next lecture. Thank you.